Emily stood at the edge of the vast field, her eyes scanning the colorful hot air balloons that floated gracefully in the early morning sky. The crisp air carried a sense of adventure, something she desperately needed. After her latest heartbreak, this solo trip was her way of escaping the routine and rekindling a sense of freedom she had lost. As the crew helped her into the wicker basket, she took a deep breath, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. The balloon gently lifted off the ground, rising above the patchwork of fields below. The scenery was breathtaking, a perfect distraction from the chaos of her thoughts. The pilot greeted her and introduced another passenger, someone who had joined at the last minute. Emily turned, her heart skipping a beat as she recognized the familiar face. Liam. Her first love, the one who had vanished from her life without a trace years ago. For a moment, they both stood frozen, words escaping them. Liam's eyes mirrored the same surprise, and perhaps something deeper, regret? Before they could speak, a sudden gust of wind rocked the balloon. The pilot's calm demeanor shifted as he worked to steady their course, but the weather had other plans. The wind picked up, forcing an emergency descent. The basket landed with a jolt in a remote clearing, leaving Emily and Liam alone with only the wilderness around them. The pilot stepped away to call for help, leaving the two former lovers in a silence thick with unspoken words. The silence between them lingered, heavy with the weight of unresolved pasts. Emily busied herself, brushing off leaves from her jacket, while Liam leaned against a nearby tree, seemingly lost in thought. The distant sound of the pilot on the radio was the only break in the quiet, but it offered no immediate solutions. They were stuck, at least for now. "I didn't expect to see you here," Emily finally broke the silence, her voice measured but wary. Liam looked up, his expression softening. "Me neither. Life has a strange way of bringing people back together." Emily crossed her arms, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "After all these years, Liam? You just vanished. No explanation, no goodbye." He winced, clearly feeling the sting of her words. "I know. And I owe you an explanation." Emily glanced around, taking in the dense forest and the ominous sky above. "Well, it looks like we have time," she muttered, her tone sharp. Liam sighed, taking a step closer. "Emily, I left because I thought I was doing what was best for you. Things were complicated back then." She shook her head, bitterness creeping into her voice. "You didn't think I deserved to know what was going on? You just decided for both of us." His eyes darkened with guilt. "I was young and stupid. I thought disappearing would protect you from the mess my life had become." Emily felt a familiar ache in her chest, the old wounds reopening. Despite her anger, there was something disarming about seeing him again, here of all places. The man she once loved was standing before her, but the years of silence still echoed between them. The sound of thunder rumbled in the distance, prompting Liam to glance at the sky. "We should find better shelter. That storm looks serious." Reluctantly, Emily nodded. They moved together, finding a rocky outcrop that offered some protection. As they sat beneath it, the tension eased just a little, allowing memories to surface, some good, some painful. Despite everything, there was an undeniable connection that time hadn't entirely erased. The sound of rain pattering against the rocks above them filled the silence. Emily pulled her knees to her chest, staring out at the storm as it slowly enveloped the landscape. Beside her, Liam sat quietly, clearly debating whether to speak. Finally, she broke the silence. "Why now, Liam? Why did you come back?" He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. "I didn't come back expecting to see you. I was visiting my uncle when I decided to take this balloon ride on a whim. But seeing you here, it feels like fate." Emily shook her head, her frustration resurfacing. "Fate? You think fate is enough to explain everything? You left me without a word. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Liam's gaze dropped, guilt etched into his features. "I know I hurt you. But back then, my family was falling apart. My dad's business went under, and we were drowning in debt. I didn't want to drag you into that mess." Emily's eyes widened, the anger giving way to shock. "You think leaving me was protecting me? I would have stood by you, Liam. We could have faced it together." "I thought I was sparing you," he replied softly. "But I see now how wrong I was. I made a selfish choice, And I regret it every day." The raw honesty in his voice stirred something within her. For years, she had imagined this moment, demanding answers, seeking closure. Yet, hearing his side now, she felt conflicted. The rain intensified, lightning flashing across the sky. Emily hugged herself tighter, processing his words. The years of pain and confusion hadn't entirely faded, but there was a hint of understanding beginning to form. I wish you had trusted me," she whispered. "We were supposed to be a team." "I know," Liam replied, his voice thick with emotion. "And I want to make things right, if you'll let me." Emily didn't respond immediately. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within her, but somewhere amidst the chaos, she felt a glimmer of hope. The storm raged on, the wind howling through the trees as rain poured relentlessly. Inside their makeshift shelter, the atmosphere between Emily and Liam began to shift. The raw emotions had been laid bare, and now there was only the question of what came next. Emily stared at the ground, her mind racing with memories and the reality of the man sitting next to her. She had every right to walk away, to let the past stay buried. But something deep inside her whispered that there was still something worth saving. As if sensing her inner conflict, Liam broke the silence. "Emily, I don't expect you to forgive me overnight. I want a chance to show you that I've changed." She looked up, her eyes searching his face. There was sincerity in his expression, a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. The walls she had built around her heart started to crack, though she wasn't ready to fully let them down. "We've both changed, Liam," she said quietly. "I'm not the same person you left behind." "I wouldn't expect you to be," he replied, a soft smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "But maybe, just maybe, we can find a way forward, together." Before she could respond, a flash of lightning illuminated the sky, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. Emily instinctively reached for Liam's arm, the fear momentarily overriding her thoughts. He wrapped an arm around her, offering comfort amidst the chaos. In that moment, something shifted. The storm outside became a backdrop to the storm within her heart, but this time, she felt a sense of calm. The doubts and fears were still there, but so was the possibility of something new, a chance to rebuild what they had lost. As the storm began to subside, Emily found herself leaning into Liam's embrace, allowing herself to believe in the possibility of forgiveness. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, she felt ready to take the first step. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind a sense of stillness in its wake. The rain had softened to a drizzle, and the clouds slowly parted, revealing the soft glow of the moon. The air was fresh, and the world around them seemed quieter, as if it too was holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. Emily and Liam sat side by side, their shoulders brushing slightly. The tension that had once defined their interactions now felt like a distant memory, replaced by an unspoken understanding. They had faced the storm together, both the literal and the emotional, and emerged on the other side changed. Liam was the first to break the silence. "We'll be rescued soon," he said, his voice low but steady. "But that doesn't mean this ends here. I don't want this to be just a fleeting moment." Emily met his gaze, her heart racing with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. She had spent so many years questioning their past, their lost connection. But now, in the quiet aftermath of everything, she realized that maybe this was her second chance. Maybe this time, they could get it right. "I'm scared, Liam," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared of getting hurt again." "I know," he said, his hand gently reaching for hers. "But I'm not the same person I was. I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you, if you'll let me." Her fingers brushed his, the warmth of his touch sending a wave of comfort through her. For the first time in a long while, Emily allowed herself to imagine a future with him. A future built on trust, on the foundation of everything they had rediscovered in each other. Before she could speak, the sound of a distant engine reached their ears. The rescue team had arrived. Emily and Liam exchanged a quiet look, and in that moment, words weren't necessary. Everything they needed to say had already been shared. As they stood up and made their way toward the rescuers, the first light of dawn began to break on the horizon. The day was just beginning, and with it, the possibility of something new. Weeks later, Emily and Liam found themselves at the very same launch site where their journey had begun. This time, There was no storm on the horizon, no fears of sudden descent. Only the peaceful quiet of the early morning sky as they prepared for another ride, this time together. As the balloon gently lifted off the ground, Emily smiled, her hand finding Liam's. The past was behind them, and the future, uncertain as it may be, was theirs to explore. And for the first time in years, Emily felt truly free.